Welcome to the Jerry A. Chase Ocean Engineering Laboratory at the University of New Hampshire, Durham campus. Here at the Chase Ocean Engineering Laboratory, resident faculty, staff, and students use state-of-the-art testing facilities to conduct research in the areas of ocean engineering, ocean renewable energy, ocean mapping, ocean acoustics, hydrogeology, and hydrographic surveying. The Chase High Bay is the heart of the experimental laboratory space. Here we have the engineering tank, which is a deep water testing basin. The tank is 20 feet deep, 60 feet long, and 40 feet across. The engineering tank is used for a variety of experiments where simulating unobstructed, open water environments is required. Several additional components offer a variety of testing platforms. For example, the acoustic profiling tower can be used to test hydrophonic transducers for array shape and intensity. Here you can see our wave or tow tank, which is 120 feet long, 12 feet wide, and 8 feet deep. This tank enables research that involves towing test bodies as well as subjecting them to wave action. Wave action is possible using a hydraulic wave generator that can produce 2 to 5 second waves that are up to half a meter in height. The tank also includes an onboarding electronics cabinet which provides enough continuous power to run state-of-the-art measurement tools for data acquisition. Along the wave tank is an oscillating water tunnel where researchers can superimpose wave motion and steady flow. It contains a sediment bed which enables the study of waves and their impact on the seafloor, beaches, and more. UNH Seacom's fleet of autonomous surface vehicles are also prepared for missions here in the High Bay. Outside of the High Bay, the Chase Ocean Engineering Laboratory is also home to a professional machine shop and smaller research and teaching laboratories with additional ocean engineering equipment, like this high-speed cavitation tunnel used for high-speed hydrodynamics testing, which can move water up to 50 feet per second through the test section and vary pressure independently. Thank you for touring the Jerry A. Chase Ocean Engineering Laboratory at the University of New Hampshire.
Thanks for joining us. I'm David Burdick, Director of the Jackson Estuary Laboratory, which is part of the School for Marine Sciences and Ocean Engineering at UNH. I'm going to give you a short virtual tour of our facilities and work. Facilities at the lab include a suite of small to mid-sized vessels ready to sail at any time and any time of tide from our dock. We have buoys and thetosons equipped with standard as well as experimental sensors. We have running seawater used for a variety of tanks for rearing and experiments. We have a greenhouse and labs set up to maintain our water quality instruments, also for microbiology, sedimentology, and ecological studies that may involve oyster reefs, seaweeds, salt marshes, seagrass meadows, and beach and dune systems. We also have an acoustic facility to study noise impacts to fish physiology in support of industrial activities in coastal waters. But our most important resource is people. We have both resident and guest faculty involved in many different projects at the lab. But today, with a short time, I'm going to focus on the resident faculty who are monitoring water quality, assessing impacts of climate change on pollutant uptake by indicators, shellfish indicators. For example, Dr. Jones is studying how uptake in blue mussels could be affected by ocean acidification. And here he's also looking at the prevalence of microbial contaminants in shellfish. With warming waters, pathogens are an emerging problem for our shellfish industry. Some look to improve horseshoe crab populations through better blood drawing procedures, while others are documenting the spread of the invasive green crab and developing culinary opportunities. Several of our faculty are involved with assessing and restoring seagrass beds, oyster reefs, tidal marshes, and beach and dune habitats, thereby building natural capital of the state and region to promote community resilience.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on which time zone you're in. My name is Brian Calder. I am a research professor at the Centre for Coastal and Ocean Mapping and at the NOAA UNH Joint Hydrographic Centre. I'm also the Associate Director of the Centre for Coastal and Ocean Mapping at the University of New Hampshire, our building here. My background is electrical engineering, and I still do a little bit of electrical engineering, for example, building equipment like this, which is used to do very low cost data capture for volunteers who are collecting bathymetry to assist with mapping the world ocean by 2030. We also do the associated software interfacing all the way in the cloud and submitting our data to the various international databases. But my primary work is in bathymetric data processing, statistical signal processing, but primarily with respect to bathymetry, like this data here, which is from the year 2000 in Snow Passage, Alaska, from our friends at NOAA. My primary work is in building software which takes the raw data from this type of data collection and makes it into something useful that can be used for generating charts for hydrographic purposes and generally for ocean mapping. Our first generation software product from that is widely available in every data processing package that's used for ocean mapping. Our second generation of this software was made available starting in about 2012, and now again is generally available. And we're currently working on a third generation of that software using machine learning methods like this hidden Markov model technique to process very much higher resolution data sets, particularly with respect to LiDAR data, particularly topographic LiDAR data, where we get LiDAR measurements, laser measurements from a plane or helicopter on the land and all the way down into the sea as well. They have issues with noise, and therefore much more robust techniques are generally useful for that. I also work in systems where we're looking at volunteer collection of data, in particular systems that can calibrate themselves so that we can trust the hardware that we're using to get better data collection. This particular system here, we're looking at the calibration results, demonstrating that the estimates we had of the calibration constants are within what we measure from a laser scan of the ship, but does it autonomously. We also do systems where we do measurements of the ship from the air. This is work we did with a graduate student who used a commercially available, very low-cost drone to do offset measurements on ships of opportunity, and we can demonstrate that with a $2,000 drone we can do it at sub-centimeter level accuracy, which is pretty nice. And we also do a lot of work in looking at how to process data that's being used, being collected by general collection systems, volunteers essentially, the general public, where what we're concerned about is the quality of the data and what use we can make of it. And so we look at things like reputation measures, as being shown here, which actually uses some work based on chess rankings, repurposed for this particular purpose. There are many more things to talk about, but I think that's probably a good introduction. I look forward to talking to you sometime shortly.
Hello, I'm Catherine Duderstadt, and I'm one of the organizers of UNH Arctic, a group designed to bring together researchers from across the university to collaborate on projects involving the changing Arctic. As the Arctic warms, new trans-Arctic sea routes will open and bring new socioeconomic opportunities involving shipping, oil and gas reserves, minerals, fisheries, and tourism. This is not only in the Arctic, but also to port communities in the Gulf of Maine and along the Atlantic coast. There will also be environmental and political challenges accompanying this rush to the north. The UNH Arctic initiative is designed to encourage convergence among disciplines in areas of research, education, and leadership. The University of New Hampshire has been recognized for decades for strong discipline-specific research, including in space science and space-based remote sensing, glaciology, snow photochemistry, atmospheric chemistry and transport, and paleoclimatology, Arctic hydrology, permafrost and peatland carbon dynamics, social perspectives on the Arctic and climate-linked migration, as well as literature, arts and theater, addressing knowledge and perceptions of the Arctic, and many areas of marine science, including remote sensing and mapping of the ocean and seafloor, acoustics, the study of methane seeps, ocean acidification, and oil spill response. There are also many emerging areas of Arctic research and scholarship, such as the study of permafrost microbiomes, earthquakes and seismic resilience in the Arctic, the impact to roads and infrastructure as ice melts and the ground thaws, the study of new satellites, such as for remote sensing of ocean color, and the emergence or the mobility of pathogens and toxins in the Arctic. UNH also boasts excellence in Arctic field training, including a new graduate traineeship program called CARPE that trains students to work on interdisciplinary teams and to collaborate with local and indigenous Arctic residents to study the changing seasons of the Arctic. This slide shows the many organizations that UNH researchers collaborate with to study Arctic research and scholarship. Partners inside the circle represent members of the New England Arctic Network, a group that brings together the wealth of expertise in New England to apply to issues of Arctic change, as well as study the impacts of Arctic change on the eastern coast of North America. UNH has additional areas of unique potential that could link the Arctic with the blue economy. I'd be happy to discuss these further in the breakout sessions. Many thanks.
Good afternoon, I'm Tracy Mandel. I'm an assistant professor here at the University of New Hampshire. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the sort of work that we do in my lab, which focuses on flow, mostly turbulent and high energy flows at ocean margins. So our research is primarily experimental. We do lab experiments, but we do have some projects in the preliminary stages that incorporate field observations. So here I'm going to give you a very brief snapshot about 3 different research questions that my group is currently studying. The first question is how can we remotely monitor seagrass meadows? Then we'll talk about how do seasonal changes in salt marsh plants affect their protective coastal benefits. And finally, I'll talk briefly about the upwelling signature of glacial discharge plumes and what that might be able to tell us about glacier dynamics and melting. So for this first question of how can we remotely monitor seagrass meadows, perhaps their health, perhaps the flow through them, let's first talk about the sort of tools that we use. So when we're trying to study the dynamics of flow through seagrass in the lab, we often use a variety of different model vegetation and place it in an open channel flume like the one that's showed here, where we can subject that model vegetation to waves and currents. And while we use more advanced instruments and techniques to study this flow, I will play a video here that shows a dye release demonstration that allows us to just visualize what's happening in the flow. So our flow here is from left to right, and we can see when we release some dye in a vertical line that we have slower moving water within our model seagrass meadow and faster flow above it. So if we want to be able to kind of observe these dynamics or maybe the properties of the seagrass meadow remotely, then we need to understand how the flow structures they generate impact the water surface. So what I'm showing in this figure on the upper panel is a cartoon of these sort of swirling fluid structures that are generated by flow through seagrass, and then the way that their periodic motion can show up in the water surface slope. So that's what I'm showing on the bottom 2 panels. We have kind of a bird's eye view of the top of the water surface, and we see these kind of periodic structures appearing. So this is some previous work. I'm currently PI on a project funded by ONR to understand how this surface signature might vary with different types of model vegetation, something that's perhaps more realistic and similar to the seagrass that we'd see in different areas on the coast. And we also want to know how these sort of surface observations might connect with the interior acoustic field. So I'm working with Dr. Gabe Venegas, who is another new faculty member here, to understand how if we were to seed our model seagrass blades with bubbles to kind of mimic the photosynthetic bubbles that would occur in real seagrass beds, we want to understand how the motion of this model vegetation also alters the acoustics of this problem. And finally, although much of my research focuses on coastal vegetation, I'm also interested in processes that happen at other kind of boundaries of the ocean, and interested in how surface signatures of complex subsurface processes can yield clues to those processes. We're currently spinning up a project to study this sort of turbulent plume pool that's generated by meltwater discharge that is released at the base of marine terminating glaciers, as shown here. And so if you look from the top, you get this sort of plume pool at the face of the glacier, and it has a distinct shape, and it also shows a great deal of sort of upwelling and this very energetic flow at the water surface. So just to summarize, the flow at coastal and marginal zones is fascinating. It's economically important, whether to coastal protection or the ecosystem services that these environments provide, but many unknowns remain. So thanks for your time, and I hope to chat with you later on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maewyn Thane, and I'd like to share with you my work in the area of systems and control for marine robotics applications, covering expertise in the areas of mechanical engineering, ocean engineering, and systems design. This area of research is applicable to any changing system to predict system performance and output, control system behavior, and to detect faults to mitigate and avoid catastrophic failure. In this way, we can leverage our current and past work with autonomous vehicles in space, air, and ground, and apply the same technology to and from applications in sea and subsea environments. We have applied and are currently developing technologies to such things as remote sensing and detection of ground and underwater magnetic anomalies and unexploded ordnances, biomimetic fish, robotic fish, for unobtrusive observation and remote sensing for open ocean aquaculture applications, swarm formation and control, real-time machine vision-based vehicle control, real-time autonomous path planning with obstacle and collision avoidance, vehicle control for harsh and changing environments, search and exploration via particle swarm optimization, and AI-based autonomy performance evaluation. We incorporate technologies that are scalable and modular to develop autonomous marine vehicles, which can then be incorporated into an already existing fleet of autonomous vehicles, the operation of which can be controlled via a consolidated shore station. An example is our ASV platform with an integrated autonomous ROV and autonomous launch and recovery system, aided by an SBL UGPS. Mission planning, control, and localization are achieved through numerical simulation with and without hardware in the loop, testing under laboratory conditions, and field testing in UNH open water facilities. In fact, we're in the process of steadily building the pieces to a collaborative ecosystem of autonomous UXVs to include autonomous surface vehicles, unpiloted and autonomous underwater vehicles, biomimetic fish, unpiloted ground vehicles, unpiloted aerial vehicles, and the corresponding technologies required for reliable autonomous performance. Here's a quick thank you to current and past sponsors. Thank you all for your time and attention. I look forward to speaking with you during this workshop.
Hello, I'm David Plachetsky, an associate professor in the Department of Molecular, Cellular, and Biomedical Sciences here at the University of New Hampshire. Work in my lab spans a range of different topics, from ecological genomics to ecophysiology, sensory biology, animal microbe interactions, genome innovations, and we're always interested in broadening participation whenever we can. The question that we always think about in my lab is, how do marine invertebrates evolve to interact with their environment? We study this using genomics, a range of different types of experimentation, and fieldwork. And today I'll talk just very briefly about 3 different projects that we have underway right now. The first of these is interested in understanding why fouling marine inverts settle where they do. And this is interesting to us because it turns out that they use some very simple nervous systems and sensory systems to determine where to settle and where to not settle. And this could be potentially interesting to aquaculture or other industries that are ocean-based, because these marine organisms cause a lot of problems with their fouling activities during the summer months. But we've uncovered certain sensory parameters, if you will, that they really don't like. And so it could offer a pretty easy, cost-effective, and environmentally friendly way of keeping these things off of aquaculture. And if you'd like to talk about that, please stop by. Another thing that we've been thinking about a lot is how marine sponges work. So we know that marine sponges are absolutely filled with microbial symbiotic communities that really serve a lot of different functions, important functions in marine ecosystems. And it turns out that when you look at the genomics that underlie these symbiotic communities and the genes that they include in their genomes, we can decipher what types of metabolic strategies the symbiotic communities are using. And this is basically sort of like a cookbook for how to put together new microbial communities to serve different tasks. And one way to think about this in terms of industry relevance could be that we could potentially build bioremediating sponges using engineering approaches that could clean up oil spills or something like that, or eliminate toxins from the water column, or even make ecosystems and reefs that are threatened right now more healthy, just by tweaking the composition of the microbial symbiotic communities. And then the final thing that I'll talk about today is actually kind of interesting, kind of strange. We're really interested in hagfish and why their slime is so slimy. So hagfish slime is really remarkable. It's really unlike anything known from other vertebrates. And it's also kind of disgusting. So we want to understand, we really want to understand how this evolved. And so to do this, we've been sequencing genomes of hagfish and slime glands from around the world. And we've uncovered a set of novel genes that underlie this obvious novel phenotype here. And so that's also interesting from the point of view of biomimicry. There could be possible textiles that could alternative biodegradable textiles that could come out of this. And so that's another way that sort of genomic prospecting is being used in the lab. And so if you're interested in discussing any of this, please stop by the table or get in touch with me. This is the QR code for the lab, and I'd be happy to talk to you. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Martin Wozniak. I am the director of the UNH Center for Ocean Renewable Energy and of the newly established Atlantic Marine Energy Center. In this video, I will give a brief high-level overview of some of the work we do related to powering the blue economy using marine energy. For context, recent Department of Energy reports show that there are significant marine energy resources in the form of tidal and ocean currents, wave energy, wind, and other sources that can be used to power the blue economy. This includes both power at sea and resilient coastal communities applications. We work on many aspects of marine energy conversion, including different technologies and applications, the fluid dynamics of single devices or arrays, and environmental impacts. Some example of work in our state-of-the-art Chase Ocean Engineering Laboratory in Durham, New Hampshire are shown here, from left to right wave energy devices to hydrofoil and cavitation research to testing of instrumented turbine models to examples of experimental results and numerical modeling. We've built a floating tidal turbine test platform, which is moored at Memorial Bridge in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Turbines up to 3 meters in diameter can be deployed and tested here in tidal currents that can exceed 2.5 meters per second during ebb tides. The example shown here is a 3.2 meter diameter cross-flow turbine. At the UNH Open Ocean Test Site, located about 2 kilometers south of the Isles of Shoals, we deployed a number of wave energy conversion devices over the past decades. Some examples are shown here. Recently, a new DOE-funded Atlantic Marine Energy Center was established with UNH as the lead university. UNH partnered with Stony Brook University, Lehigh University, the Coastal Studies Institute in North Carolina, and the National Renewable Energy Laboratories, Sandia National Laboratories, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and the European Marine Energy Center. Some of the work thrust that AMEC is engaging in include digital twinning, environmental impacts, power at sea, reduced order modeling, power infrastructure resilience, marine energy foundations, supply chain optimization, and energy storage integration. Thank you for your attention. Here's my contact information, and here are also the logos of our sponsors, current and past.
Hello, everybody. And looking forward to meeting everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tom Lipman. I'm a professor of oceanography in the Department of Earth Sciences here at the University of New Hampshire. I direct the oceanography graduate program and affiliated with a number of other centers, including the Center for Ocean Engineering and the School of Marine Science and Ocean Engineering. My main research interests have to do with nearshore and coastal physical oceanography, including estuary dynamics and mixing, and large-scale bathymetric evolution, of course, in shallow water environments. My approach is three-pronged. Myself and my students approach problems from a theoretical standpoint. We also use field observations from a variety of different platforms using a number of different instruments. And we conduct numerical modeling simulations using theoretical guidance and observations to verify those models and for boundary conditions. I have a number of research projects ongoing. I've listed a few of them here. They mainly have to do with research environments here in New Hampshire, particularly the Great Bay Estuary and Hampton-Seabrook Estuary. Also in the Gulf of Maine, doing lobster larval transport, and additional work in Oregon Inlet in North Carolina. We also do a number of other things, including harmful algal bloom dynamics, depending on what the students are doing. And in the past, I've worked on El Nino kinds of processes in the Central Pacific, Eastern Pacific. Just to give you some feeling for the location of the projects around here, I've indicated some ongoing efforts in the Gulf of Maine, Schaghticoke River, Great Bay Estuary, and along the coastline here. I just want to leave you then with a couple of our simulations that my students have done with me, including estimating tidal flows and waves in the Great Bay Estuary so that we can estimate bed shear stresses. And we can use this then with offline particle tracking models to look at sediment transport patterns and particle path trajectories in the estuary. I'll just leave you with that. I'm happy to discuss any of these approaches that we have, any ongoing research projects with you as we have time. Looking forward to meeting people. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Mixons, and I serve as the director for the Center for Acoustics Research and Education, or CARE, here at UNH. I also have affiliations in the Center for Coastal and Ocean Mapping in the School of Marine Science and Ocean Engineering. I'm very excited that UNH is launching a blue economy effort. I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about ocean acoustics at UNH and in the Gulf of Maine. I'd like to start by just introducing you to CARE. CARE is a visible presence now, both on campus and off, as a recognized entity specializing in acoustics. Basic and applied acoustics expertise is spread over multiple colleges, departments, centers, and programs here at UNH. And CARE now provides a centralized program to provide the fundamentals of acoustics, signal processing, sound propagation, and sound measurement that is vital to all using acoustics across campus. CARE is under the umbrella and resides in EOS, the Institute for the Study of Earth, Oceans, and Space. And I'm joined by Anthony Lyons and Michelle Fournay as the Associate Directors of Research and Education. We also work with 14 affiliated UNH faculty and staff across 4 different colleges. From the outside looking in, CARE works with industry, government sponsors, academia, community organizations, regulators, and managers. We have a workforce development thrust, And right now, we have 4 industry sponsors, industry partners, and 4 education partnership agreements with Navy facilities across the US. I'd like to just briefly touch on the work we're doing in underwater acoustics in the Gulf of Maine, which is directly applicable to the blue economy. The project is called the Acoustic Environmental Observation Network in the Northwest Atlantic, or EON, and this work is sponsored currently by the Office of Naval Research. We have 5 different observation nodes in the Gulf of Maine, which is shown in the bottom right-hand corner. And when 4 of those nodes are active, recording passive acoustically, we're able to have full coverage, acoustic coverage of the Gulf of Maine to maintain acoustic connectivity between the different sites. And lastly, I'd really just like to highlight the value of acoustic monitoring in general. Passive acoustic monitoring provides time series of marine mammal detections, environmental sound levels or soundscapes, information on sea ice dynamics, ocean wind and precipitation information, and it detects human activity in the area, which is really critical knowledge related to environmental assessments and permitting linked directly to the blue economy. Thank you for your time, and please reach out to me if you'd like to learn any more about CARE or the research that we are currently doing.